It's a Sunday of sorrow for Newtown, Connecticut, and for the nation. This afternoon, hundreds of residents walked the road to Sandy Hook Elementary School, where, on Friday, 26 people were murdered, 20 of them children, in the first grade. President Obama has been in Newtown tonight for a memorial service. First reports of this tragedy have turned out to be inaccurate. We were told that the gunman's mother was a teacher at the school, that he was allowed in because he was recognized, and that he targeted his mother's classroom with 2 handguns. Tonight, we know that all of that is wrong. Here's what we do know, as told by people who knew the gunman and by one woman at the school that he approached but did not kill.
The story will continue in a moment.
That woman is Sally Cox, the school nurse. This picture was taken shortly after she left Sandy Hook Elementary on Friday. She's been the school nurse there 15 years, and she told us that Friday morning began with comforting routine. 9:10, Pledge of Allegiance. 9:15, outside doors locked. Then came 9:30.
All of a sudden I heard very loud popping noise. I mean, a noise that I've never ever heard before. And my first thought was this something with the heating system, or did something fall? And I called out to the secretary, "Barb, what is that?" And then she called out to me by name. She said, "Sally." And I could just hear like fear in her voice.
It was something about the way Barb called out your name?
Yes. Yeah. She just had this horrible sound of fear in her voice. That's what made me just, because I think I was about ready to go to see what was going on. The popping kept going off, and I just dove underneath my computer desk. The back of the desk has a small opening for like wires to come out, and I just peeked. I could see his feet and his legs from the knees down, and his feet were facing in my direction. And I just froze with fear. And then it was just seconds, and then he turned around and I could hear him walk out. I heard the door close, and then I just heard popping starting all over again. And then the secretary, she was down behind my desk, and we pulled the phone off the desk, and she called 911.
And she said what?
She said, "We have a shoot. Please send help right away. We have a shooter in the building." And then we just wanted to get out of there. And then we just ran into my big supply closet, and we ran into the closet. We pulled that door closed, so we were behind 2 locked doors, and we could just hear the popping continue, and we heard screams. There's nothing we could do, It was just a helpless, horrible feeling, and just like a nightmare that couldn't believe that. I just think it's a bad dream. After some time, I think it was about 11:15, so we had been in that closet for about an hour and a half. I opened the door and I peeked out, because my office has a lot of windows and looks into the courtyard. And I just saw what looked like maybe SWAT people, but I didn't know, who they were. I didn't know if there were other shooters. And it wasn't until about 1:15 when somebody was jiggling the door, and but nobody called out. So I decided to be brave enough and open that door into the office, and a lot of state police officers were there at that point, and they were very surprised to see me.
You were in the closet for about 4 hours?
Close to it, yeah. Just fearful.
I wonder what the standard security at the school is in terms of allowing visitors into the building and that sort of thing. How is it supposed to work?
We do our Pledge of Allegiance at 9:10, and then 5 minutes later, the doors are locked. All the doors all going around the whole building. And then when people come, they have to buzz. There's a camera. They push a button. Buzzes in the office, and we buzz them in.
How long has that been true?
4 or 5 years.
The gunman had shot out a window to get past the locked door. From the start, Sally Cox told us the teachers and the kids went immediately into the lockdown that they had practiced and practiced. Children were trained to go under their desks in events like these.
Yeah. And we have different kinds of drills. You know, I mean, not in addition to fire drills and high wind drills and lockdown drills and evacuation drills. So we've done it. We've been doing it. You know, each month it's something different. You know.
So you've done those kinds of things fairly recently?
Just recently, yep. Yes. Yeah.
At some point you left the school. Mm-hmm. And I wonder, in that journey from your office through the door, what did you see?
They told me to close my eyes. They took my arm and they guided me out. They said, "We'll guide you out. We want you to close your eyes until we get to the parking lot." I don't know what was there that they didn't want me to see, but they told me to close my eyes.
And that's what you did?
That's what I did. Yeah.
The officers spared her the sight of the bodies of 20 first graders, 4 teachers, the school psychologist, the principal, and the killer. 20-year-old Adam Lanza lived in town nearly all his life, but he left few impressions. Olivia DeVivo sat behind Lanza in 10th grade honors English.
Yeah, he carried a briefcase to every class, and that stood out to me because in high school everyone has backpacks and, you know, messenger bags, and that stood out to a lot of kids.
It also stood out that Lanza was uncomfortable when asked to speak in class.
He just would get very nervous, and, you know, his face would turn bright red, and he would get very fidgety, and you could just tell that it wasn't that he didn't know the answer, it's just that it was very difficult for him to say what he wanted to say.
Did he have a reputation for being a smart kid?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can just tell by the way he was in class. He was always appeared to be very attentive and focused.
How would you describe him socially?
He must have really felt uncomfortable in any kind of social situation because he never really put himself out there, and I just don't really remember him ever, you know, stepping forward or really saying anything. It was just he wanted to be left alone, and we left him alone.
She doesn't remember Lanza after that, maybe because he wasn't going to the high school full-time. Family friends told us that he was being homeschooled by his mother, Nancy Lanza. Nancy Lanza told her friends Mark and Louise Tambascio that Adam was brilliant but disabled. Did Nancy Lanza ever tell you specifically what her son's medical condition was? Did she put a name to it?
Asperger's.
That's what she said?
Yeah. Yes.
That it was Asperger's syndrome?
Absolutely. There's no question.
And for her, it was a full-time job, taking care of him.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Asperger's syndrome is a disorder within the spectrum of autism. It's characterized by social impairment, communication difficulty, and repetitive patterns of behavior. An Asperger's support group told us today that patients are more prone to be victims of violence than the perpetrators of violence, and we don't know whether Asperger's played any role in the shootings. But friends told us that the condition did dominate the Lanza's lives.
I mean, I know he was on medication and everything. She was, you know, but she homeschooled him at home because he couldn't deal with the school classes sometimes. So she just homeschooled him at home, and that was her life. She wasn't working. She devoted her time to Adam. Yes, yes. She didn't have to work, so that's what she did. She homeschooled him, and you know, and she did a lot of charitable work and everything.
Nancy Lanza appeared well off, living with her son in an upscale home. She was 52, divorced in 2009, with another older son. In town, they say she was friendly and generous, donating time and money to charities. Nancy Lanza also made a hobby of shooting sports. She owned several guns. A friend said that she'd grown up that way on a farm in New Hampshire.
Yeah, she liked to target shoot. You know, she got into it, I think, in, you know, the last few years or so. She really enjoyed it. But yeah, she was advocate. She really got into it and loved it.
The guns Adam Lanza carried into the school, a rifle and 2 pistols like these, were all legal, registered to his mother under Connecticut laws which are among the strictest in the nation. The murder weapon was a semi-automatic variation on the M16 assault rifle. It fires 1 round with each pull of the trigger. The first victim Friday was Nancy Lanza. Police say they found her lying in bed, shot in the face. They also discovered the computers in the home had been smashed to bits. An FBI lab is trying to recover documents from the hard drives now, and investigators will subpoena the Lanza's emails and text messages from service providers. Motive is still a mystery, but if anyone can begin to understand an attack like this, it's Robert Fine and Brian Voskuil. In 1999, they went into prisons to interview and study assassins and would-be assassins for the U.S. Secret Service.
They're going in, they're going in.
Then in 2002, the Secret Service published their follow-up study on 37 school shooters. Robert, you've been speaking to people who are involved in the investigation at the highest levels, and I wonder what they're telling you about these early days.
Fundamentally, what I hear is that this is a very complicated case, a very difficult, painful case that's going to take a long time to really unravel and understand.
What are they saying about precedents and how this compares?
On the continuum of lone offender attacks, this case is described as way out there on the continuum in terms of awfulness.
They discovered that most attackers followed a discernible pattern of behavior for weeks or even months before the attack. They call it the pathway to violence. How does this pathway to violence manifest itself? What is it that people can look for in a person who is on this pathway, as you describe it?
People who engaged in these attacks took a series of actions, as in often selecting a particular weapon, sometimes practicing with a weapon. They thought, I'm desperate. They accepted the idea that violence might be an acceptable way to solve their problems.
In how many cases did the shooter tell someone essentially what he was planning on doing before he did it?
In almost all of them, the student who committed the attack, the school shooter, communicated in many instances his intent to commit the attack.
The events of Friday struck fear into the heart of every parent who sends a child to school all across this country. I wonder what you would tell the folks at home who worry, can I send my kid to school on Monday?
It is important to remember that these are extremely, extremely rare events.
Any event as horrible as the attack of last Friday scares everybody. But the reality in this country is that schools have been and are safer and have become much safer over the last several years.
Yesterday in Newtown, they released the names of the lost. We were surprised when school nurse Sally Cox told us that she was making a point of not hearing them. Not all at once, anyway. Better to take 26 blows, one at a time.